Welcome to the Binge Breakers podcast. I'm Jacqueline. I am here to teach you how I overcame bulimia and my binge eating disorder, and how you can too. Through simple steps of mind management, repairing your relationship with yourself, understanding your habits, and intuitive eating.
Disclaimer. This recording is not intended to be utilized as medical advice or a medical diagnosis. If you think you're in need of medical attention or treatment, please seek it immediately. This recording will also contain sensitive subjects such as binging and purging, weight, and depression. Please listen at your own discretion and do what you think is best for you.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. The podcast is out a day early, if you don't notice, for Thanksgiving. I just wanted to make sure you guys had something to listen to, something to start your day off right, especially those that aren't in my group coaching program or at my private clients. I know that this is a free resource to people, and they rely on it sometimes as motivation for their recovery. So I just wanted to give you content early on a day that I know is pretty hard for some of you. And I thought a lot about what I wanted to speak about, like what can I do, top tips for Thanksgiving and all that sort of stuff. But I've made a lot of holiday podcasts before, so you can go back and listen to those if you want. They are in the backlog of all my podcast episodes, and I think they're pretty useful and still very valid. But I wanted to first say for Thanksgiving, well, actually what I wanted to do was compile again, like I did last podcast, a few clips from this week, because of those of you guys that didn't know, I did the Conquer Binge Eating this Thanksgiving workshop, and it was a workshop that was 6 days. It was completely free. It's still available through Sunday if you are interested, if you want to get the replays and stuff from it. I did 2 group coaching calls on it too. But anyways, I did a lot of talking about Thanksgiving and how to kind of handle it differently than maybe you would before. And so I wanted to share a few more clips from that because I think it was useful, particularly some of our group coaching content that we did. I don't want to share people that were speaking on the call for their privacy purposes, but I will share some of the responses I had to people. And then also one of a clip from our Facebook Live in our group coaching program. I think it'd be useful for you guys to hear. That was really interesting that I did today. So I'll share all those things in a second. But I did just want to say briefly, you're allowed to eat food today. You're allowed to enjoy your Thanksgiving. You're allowed to do what you want. You're allowed to say no to people if you want today. You're allowed to feel a little bit irritated and upset of like all the family and all the chaos going around. You're allowed to not be perfectly happy. You don't have to be super grateful, but you're allowed to feel grateful for whatever's going on. You're allowed to just enjoy food and indulge a little bit and have that second slice of pie. It doesn't have to be this super calculated planned thing. You're allowed forgiveness if you binge and purge, or if you drink a little bit of alcohol. You're allowed to make mistakes as a human being and not hold that against yourself for the rest of time. You're allowed to try to recover, even if today is a total disaster. You're allowed to do whatever the hell you want to do. And you're always allowed space. You're allowed to feel your feelings today. You're allowed to feel uncomfortable. You're allowed to feel sad. Whatever it is you need, you're always allowed. And I think the biggest thing I work on with people outside of stopping binge and purging is really giving themselves the freedom to do what they want to do. I think a lot of recovery and a lot of bulimia, honestly, is caused by people just feeling out of control in their lives, and then they just turn to their eating disorder. The food becomes something that they can control, something that numbs out the pain of their lives, because they're really not making choices for themselves. They're making choices for everyone else. They're doing what they think they should be doing for everyone else, and that's just not the way I want people to live or you to live today. So whatever you're doing in the world today, maybe you're not even celebrating Thanksgiving because you're not in the crazy United States, whatever the hell we're doing these days. Country is just weird, but wherever you are in the world, you're allowed. And also, I'm saying this that you have permission, but I do want to recognize some people here, like, you're allowed to do what you want. They're like, I can't just allow myself to do whatever I want. I want to offer you that you're not a wild animal, and that you giving yourself free reign to make food decisions, to make decisions that are good for you, to use your brain and your intuition, doesn't mean you're just going to binge like crazy. Stop treating yourself like a wild animal. You are okay. And giving yourself full permission does not mean that you have to binge and purge. It doesn't mean you have to go crazy. I talked a lot about this with a client yesterday of moderation, and that boundaries with food can come from a place of self-love, and it can come from a place of I want this rather than I have to, or I'm not allowed, or I can't eat that because then I would lose my mind and then I just can't be trusted. So also going today that you're allowed to have boundaries with food, and that's totally fine. And that's reasonable, I'd say. I think Thanksgiving's a kind of a weird binge holiday for a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be that way. You can be pleasantly full. You can be pleasantly satisfied. You can be pleasantly overindulged, but not bending over backwards or just like keeled over because you ate so much food. And that's all right too. You're allowed to have boundaries with food. Anyway, rambling at this point, I'm going to put some clips in from the past week that I think are kind of gems that might help you a whole bunch. And other than that, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I just wanted to say thank you. This podcast has been going on for 3 years now. We're going to be going on 4 next year. And it's crazy to think that I don't know, I get to do this as my job, that I get to help people, that even those of you guys that have never paid me a dime, like you still benefit from this podcast and you listen and somehow think I have value to share with the world. And I just want to say thank you for listening and supporting this podcast. I get messages from people all the time. I don't always have time to read them or respond to every single thing, but I do see them, and I just am grateful from the bottom of my heart that you listen and that you're here, because it allows me to do what I need to do and live my life. And it's a freedom and privilege that I don't take lightly. And also, I've learned so much through doing this. I think that's another thing I'm super grateful for. I'm such a different person from when I started the podcast, and really this podcast helps me every single week that I get to sit down and talk with you guys. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's a reflection time for me. It's sometimes where I work some of my concepts out. It's sometimes where I reflect on what I need and speak about that with you guys. As much as maybe you think that this podcast has helped you by having a platform for someone to speak to you about bulimia recovery and inspire you, by listening, have also offered me a safe space to talk about bulimia and to talk about other things going on in my life and to work through things. And honestly, I didn't realize how much I needed this podcast until I started putting it out. So if you're a listener out there, I just want you to know that you provide me a safe space as much as I provide you a safe space. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's a real privilege to be able to have this. Yeah. Anyways, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the podcast. Bye. There's this idea that binging is the only way you can experience freedom with the food. And then also this idea of what gives me the right to eat when I haven't done this, or when I haven't purged these things. Part of it, I do think you'll need to intellectualize that you do in fact have a right, and you need to come up with your own reasons as to why you have a right, regardless of purging, regardless of what you do with your eating disorder. But then 2, I think that you'll have to prove your eating disorder wrong through action. I think that you'll have to just rebel and be like, look, I ate, nothing bad happened. I do in fact have the right, watch me. I can actually eat what I want, when I want, with freedom, without using binging or purging. Like, watch me, that sort of thing. It's almost like your eating disorder is telling you all these lies, and you just have to test them a little bit and push them to watch them crumble. Because I don't know, to me, just hearing you speak, like, of course you have the right to eat anything you want, regardless of whether you purged. It's just like, it's not even a question to me, but to you, because you've been believing that for so long, it is. And then also the idea that you can't eat freely, right? You can eat what you want without binging. Binging is just this false sense of safety. It doesn't help you with anything. You get to decide what you want to eat. Yeah, I love thinking about bulimia and your eating disorder like a breakup and like an abusive relationship, because that's what it is. It tells you a whole bunch of lies. It manipulates you into thinking things that are true so that it can control you, right? And of course, Allison has the right to eat, regardless of whether she is purged or not. You would never to another person say that, but to ourselves, our eating disorder says that. It makes no sense. And we alone can always have the freedom to eat what we want. The binging doesn't allow that. You allow that, right? But it's under this disguise of binging or purging. It really is just a ball and chain. So the more you can see those lies for what they are, and then try to test against them and rebel against them, better off you'll be. I had one client that really struggled with setting boundaries, but also not purging. And what she would tell herself wasn't to get herself to not purge, wasn't everything will be okay. She would say, maybe it will be okay. Maybe this won't be bad. Or when she'd have to say no to someone, it was so scary for her. She'd be like, maybe it isn't the end of the world. Maybe it will be all right. And she had a perception of those things. You almost have to accept the full reality that your perception of wanting bulimia is mistaken or flawed or broken, and that want and burning desire is kind of a false thing that's leading you to it, and you have to respond differently to it as if it's a little bit wonky, a little bit broken. So that's the other thing I'm kind of getting to here, is that for you, you constantly have this scarcity and wanting it, but it always leads you to the same thing. You know what binging's like. You've done it 1,000 times before, maybe not 1,000 times, but you've done it many times before. It's not anything new. You're kind of waiting for the desire or the scarcity to go away. I'm suggesting that stop waiting for it and just get the conviction of, we're going to just go without it for a little bit and see how we feel. And I think the scarcity and the desire will go away with time. And that's kind of the hard part of it. It's like, well, I want to do that. And it's like, that's not how it works, especially with addictions. You have to be sober from it and radically accept that no matter what, no matter how badly you want it, it's not serving you anymore. And it sucks. It's not, I don't know. The first time I kind of came to the conclusion of like, nothing will replace binging, but it's still not serving me. It was very helpful. It's really crappy. I hated it in a lot of ways, and I found it very frustrating. I was almost angry. I've worked with many clients actually, that they have to go through this like anger and rage phase of like, it's not fair. It's not fair that I can't binge and then do whatever I want. It isn't, but that is the reality. Because for me, I wish sometimes I still could binge occasionally. Like most of the time it's not desirable to me, but on my really stressful days, or like I'm super hungry or something, that's still appealing to me. And I wish I could purge sometimes. Like that can be appealing to me, but I know the reality of, yeah, that would be nice, but it would completely destroy my life. And therefore it freaking sucks that I can't do that in moderation, but I can't. And I've radically accepted that about myself. I think maybe this person needs to radically accept that no matter how many times she binges, it will never ever be enough. She will always want more. Therefore is continually giving herself more the right answer? Or does she need to reel it back in and realize that she just needs to put a hard stop to it and just needs to get real with herself that like, this isn't serving me anymore, and we have to rely on a different desire, or we have to just let the desire be there and not do it and find other ways to cope. And that's